say, hey, we should put this off entirely, wait until Doug Jones is seated, I gotta tell you, I don't see that being a very likely outcome right now. Sad. Thanks, Ed.
Short and sweet.
I said a thing that I was sending it to people, like, it was just, when they put it to the side, it was just too much. They just dumped it over here and everything there.
I'm never home for something like that. That's my problem. Nice. Congrats.
Come on. Come on, there you go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but come on. Come on, I'm done with that. There, wait. I don't take it in the front of my car. Make sure it's like that. It's all part of the package. Yeah. Very cinema verite. Exactly. Precisement. Mon petit chou.
Hey, Chad, hey, so, good, so I gotta get through this first request. I sort of go to 10 o'clock. And then I gotta do something in the next 11:30, but let me see if I can arrange in between here, where I can come over. You guys are in Russell, is that right? And tell me kind of what you wanna ask or say or do.
I think that you'll know what she said.
Oh,
Well, go ahead and have my positive remarks about.
Okay. Okay, all right, I'll try to come find you when this thing wraps up, or something else for you.
It's an incredible, look at it.
Okay, thank you.
You conditioned?
I know. So it's fun. No, they told that idea. Alex just told me. We gave up, yeah, we gave up our seat.
And the thing that she said.
Why are you doing it?
Well, no,
Very good.
Good. Wait, where are you getting over? It's taking a minute.
You know, Bernstein is the last one.
Yeah.
You know, George.
The second, on the second part.
And that's like how we were.
Are we happy with it? Okay. I don't know enough to be able to do. But, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Awesome. Thank you so much.
We'll call it
Oh, absolutely.
do things about John. But. Good. It's a loop and you can't concentrate.
Good. When in doubt.
Make sure you set up a little bit.
According to an email from the great Don Stewart,
He's just overwhelmed.
Debbie didn't delay the vote on Obamacare with percent of the right.
On all fronts.
Because they didn't have the votes. They ended up using reconciliation. It took months, well after Senator Brown.
That's unfortunate.
We announced our Tyler on Texas.
Yeah.
But Cheryl, only about 4% of that bill was passed under
Good,
reconciliation,
good, yes.
because they did the two-step, they did the bounce back and forth with the House. The House passed another bill with the idea that the Senate would pass another one. And if you crunch the math, it's only about 4% that was passed under reconciliation.
You're awful. Yeah,
In other words, it's not an apt.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll do your White House. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Did Stu send it out to everyone or just to you?
I don't know.
All right.
It was blind.
I'll send it if you ask.
I don't see it.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. It all does. Yeah. Yeah. All right, see you, brother. Don't listen to Mark. So you know, I'll never take Mark's advice. Remember who you was.
I think so. It's too late for that.
Right. But it's for all of us.
Yeah, it's already straight.
Why are we working?
And then,
Just rolled in.
You're right on time.
Yeah, no.
What if it's not newspaper, but it's just one kind of paper? Okay.
Town Capitol Hill, Schumer bus was starting now, like.
Spoiler alert.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I knew they were putting up quotes, but I didn't know which ones. Okay, thanks for coming. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about the special election results in Alabama and what they mean for both parties and the country going forward. Then I'd like to talk about the tax bill and what this election should mean for the future of the Republican tax bill. Now, first, Senator-elect Doug Jones deserved to win this race. He's a really fine man. He was an excellent candidate. He's going to make an outstanding senator for the people of Alabama. If you just read his biography, it's so touching. As a young man, he sat and watched the prosecution of one of the people involved in the 16th Street Baptist Church killing and vowed that he wanted to change things in his life. He's a man of great conviction. He's a man of great talent. And I couldn't think of anyone who can more finely represent the people of Alabama than Doug Jones. Roy Moore was a terrible candidate, but it would be a big mistake for Republicans to dismiss his loss only as a result of Moore's personal past. The Republican brand, even in deep red Alabama, is positively toxic. The president's approval in a state he won by nearly 30 points a year ago was dead even, according to the exit polls. The president keeps talking like he's helping the middle class, but his policy after policy helps the wealthy and the powerful and hurts the middle class. The American people, and even some in the Trump base, are beginning to catch on. If they continue to run the government for the benefit of the few, special, powerful, wealthy interests, there'll be many more Alabamas in 2018. Many more. What does it mean for Democrats? Well, there's a common theme in Virginia, New Jersey, and now Alabama. One, our base was energized. People felt a passion to make their voices heard, and turnout throughout Alabama, particularly in the Black Belt, rural African-American, largely African-American Alabama, was in large, large numbers. The enthusiasm to stop Trump mirrored what happened in 2012 and 2008. Two, young people, the millennials, are overwhelmingly Democratic. Overwhelmingly. 18 to 35, the millennials will be the largest voting cohort this coming year. And they are not just Democratic by 5 points or 10, but by 20 and 30. And they, too, are turning out. And finally, maybe most importantly, the suburbs are swinging back to us. Republicans, with their policies, are going to lose them in 2018. And now they're even making it worse with the tax bill, which is an anti-suburban tax bill. So you put all that together, base being energized, millennials overwhelmingly Democratic, suburbs swinging back to the Democrats, and it means that things are looking good for us. Now, what about the tax bill? Well, today we Senate Democrats are calling on Mitch McConnell to hit pause on his tax bill and not hold a final vote until Doug Jones is sworn into the Senate. Doug Jones will be the duly elected senator from the state of Alabama. The governor didn't appoint him. He won an election. It would be wrong for Senate Republicans to jam through this tax bill without giving the newly elected senator from Alabama the opportunity to cast his vote. Now, that's exactly what Republicans argued when Scott Brown was elected in 2010. Referring to health care, listen to what Leader McConnell said. What we ought to do, his quote, McConnell's quote, what we ought to do, as we said repeatedly throughout the month of December, as you know, we were here every day, we ought to stop and start over and go step by step to concentrate on fixing the problem. He said of the election, the one of Scott Brown, I think the majority has gotten the message, and no more gamesmanship, no more lack of transparency. What did Leader Reid do when Scott Brown was elected? He said, we're going to wait until the new senator arrives until we do anything more on the health care bill, which was then pending. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, and what's good for the gander is good for the goose. McConnell ought to do what he said ought to be done in 2010, and what Reid did in 2010, delay till Doug Jones gets here and can cast a vote. Plain and simple. Will McConnell and the Republicans get the message that their rushed, behind closed doors tax bill, which gives huge breaks to the wealthy and corporations while increasing taxes on millions of middle-class people, is not the way to go. It's being roundly rejected by the American people. Will they have the strength and the political foresight to start over, or at least to modify their bill? Or will they just barrel ahead, pretending not to hear the voices of the middle class crying out against this bill? Because this bill is a suburban tax, plain and simple. It's a suburban tax because it will clobber suburbs with getting rid of the state and local deduction. It will be aimed particularly at the Republican constituency there. People who make between, say, $75,000 and $300,000. They're the ones who will get hurt by this bill. And yet the Republicans are barreling ahead. And then, if you thought that they couldn't make the bill worse in the conference committee, they did. They reduced the top rate, it's speculated, from 39.6 to 37, benefiting only people who are very wealthy. How is that going to help the middle class? It's not. It hurts them. So our hope is that Mitch McConnell will do the right thing. Our hope is that Mitch McConnell will hear what the voters in the suburbs of Alabama said. Help us. It's our hope that Mitch McConnell will realize proceeding with this tax bill will be a dramatic, dramatic death knell for the Republican Party in 2018. It's a loser. It's a loser the way it was written. It's a loser because it helps the wealthy and the special powerful interests, not the middle class. And as every poll shows, the American people know it. So our Republican colleagues should stop before it's too late and work with us on a bipartisan bill. Not everyone will agree with a bipartisan bill. The hard right won't, the hard left won't. But we could get one done, and it would benefit the country and the middle class, and probably, incidentally, benefit the Republican Party. But they're making huge mistakes. Instead of learning from their mistakes, Republicans are barreling ahead and doubling down on them. On process, on policy, on politics. Pausing on this tax bill and going back to the drawing board is the right thing for Republicans to do. I hope for the sake of this country, they will look at the Alabama election, hit the pause button, work with us, and start doing the right thing for middle-class Americans. Ready for your questions on this subject first.
Republicans pushback say what happened in 2010 was more of a Democratic votes issue, but more importantly, that the Scott Brown race was a referendum on health care. That's why the pause was necessary. Do you believe the Alabama race was a referendum on this tax bill?
If you look at suburban places, look at Shelby County, the most college-educated county in Alabama. Trump won by 30, and Moore only won by 10 or 12, I think it was. So this was a referendum. The middle class and suburban middle class people said, we want change. And when that happens in Alabama, that's happening everywhere in America.
Peter Schumer, two-part question. Have you spoken with Senator-elect Jones about how he would vote on the tax bill?
I've spoken with Senator-elect Jones. I have not asked him how he'd vote on the tax bill. He will make a decision based on what he believes is good for the people of Alabama. And throughout this campaign, it's been an Alabama campaign all the way. Whenever they've asked for help, we've given it to them. But it was run of, by, and for Alabamans. The campaign manager was Giles Perkins, longtime Alabama political savant. And there aren't too many Giles Perkins in Brooklyn.
And the follow-up question is that said...
Sort of an ethnic joke. Didn't you get it?
My wife is from Brooklyn. So
Okay.
So my follow-up question then is, wouldn't it be good politics, potentially? I know what you said to Phil's question about Alabama and this being a referendum, but this is a red state historically. Would it be a good vote for him potentially to vote yes?
Look, he'll make his own decision, but throughout America, this tax bill is wildly unpopular. And we've had a lot of Democrats from very red states, some of which voted more heavily for Trump than Alabama, voting against this bill because they thought it was so bad for the middle-class people, the working-class people of their states. He'll make his own decision. Taylor.
How do you think this election may affect the agenda going forward? First with this basket of issues
Look, the lesson of this election is that the Republican policies are all wrong. They favor the wealthy, they favor the powerful corporations, and they hurt middle-class people. I just saw something yesterday, net neutrality. Helping the big owners of broadband against middle-class users and small startups, wildly unpopular with the American people on issue after issue after issue. When they repeal regulations and they brag about it, they're helping powerful interests and hurting average middle-class people. The hard right, which is run by 1,000 very wealthy, very narrow, very greedy people, is running the Republican Party, and they're paying a price for it at the polls in New Jersey, Virginia, Alabama, and will continue to unless they change. My hope, whatever happens politically, is for the good of the country they change. Will they? Thus far, they have been unable to break from the hard right. The hard right has been around for a long time. They spent a lot of time criticizing, but now they had a chance to govern because Trump, who didn't campaign as a hard right guy, adopted the hard right philosophy. It's a failure. It's so far away from what the average American and even the average Republican thinks that they're running into the kind of trouble they ran into yesterday. Yes.
Thank you, Leader. Two questions, if you don't mind. One, there are a number of Republicans in Congress who have expressed concerns about the tax bill. Are you reaching out to any of them? Do you have any indication that any of them would
You'll have to ask them.
Okay, and secondly, to follow up on Andy's question, can you say what you think the election might mean for the year-end negotiations on the spending cap?
We hope, look, we hope the Republicans get the message, and just favoring the wealthy special interests won't work. Cutting programs. We Democrats, here's what we're fighting for at end of year. Veterans, opioid addiction, pensions to help people who are being robbed of their pensions, solid middle-class issues. Will the Republican Party hear the lesson of yesterday and go along with us on those things, or will they try to stonewall it? That's the $64,000 question. This subject, Casey.
Well, I was going to ask
This subject.
on
Yeah,
her question,
yeah, sure.
About DACA.
Mm-hmm.
Have you made a decision that you do not need a fix for the Dreamers before the end of this year? Do you think you can get a fix for them?
There are very good negotiations going on between Democrats and Republicans, some Republicans you might not think, and we're very hopeful that there will be bipartisan support so we can get DACA done by the end of the year.
But it's not a must.
Senator Schumer, the negotiators on the tax bill apparently are looking at a top individual rate of as low as 97%, which isn't in either of the bills.
What? 97?
97%.
Of what?
I'm sorry, the top individual, 37%.
If they went for a top rate of 97%, they would have overgotten the lesson of Alabama.
Sorry, late night. What's your reaction to the fact that they're looking at something that's lower than what's in that?
It's hard to believe they could make this new tax proposal even worse for the middle class than their last one. And their illogic is amazing. So the idea was that SALT is hurting the middle class. Instead of undoing their repeal of state and local deductibility, they reduce rates further on the rich. That doesn't solve the SALT problem, which is a differential. If everyone gets a 37% rate, the differential between New York and California and New Jersey and Illinois and the suburbs of Philadelphia stays the same. So it doesn't fix that problem. Instead, it gives another boon to the very wealthy. And I guess, Donald Trump's wealthy friends in New York said, oh, SALT is going to hurt us. He says, I'll reduce your top rate. Makes no sense. Doesn't do anything for New York. And I, again, would renew my plea to the Republican Congress members in New Jersey, New York, California, suburbs of Philadelphia, suburbs of Chicago, suburbs of Minneapolis, suburbs of Denver, to not vote for any repeal of SALT, because it will hurt their constituents. It's wrong for the country and wrong for them, and they ought to have the courage to buck it, like a group of us in '86 did. In '86, I was for tax reform. It was done by Democrats, Bradley and Gephardt. But I led a coalition, along with the Republican colleagues, to say we will not vote for the bill if it has a SALT deduction in it. And Bradley and Gephardt took it out, and then we voted for the bill, and it passed. They can do it's in their hands. It's in the hands of the Republican Congress members of California, New Jersey, and New York whether their states get clobbered or not. And they should have the courage to make the right decision. Brune.
Why do you think President Trump is turning his back on his home state and home city on assault reduction?
President Trump, when I talk to him about policy, has an amazing way of deluding himself. He doesn't know the details, and he says whatever he wants to say. So if he got how devastating, and many of his friends in the real estate industry have told him this is going to hurt New York, home values throughout New York, whether you use the standard deduction or not, whether you use SALT or not, are going to go down. Every New Yorker is going to be hurt. Same with California, same with New Jersey. And by the way, the hurt to those states, Massachusetts, Boston, Chicago, Denver, Miami, is going to drag down our national economy. The predictions that this bill will help the national economy forget the fact that many of the things they do in the bill hurt the economy, such as SALT, private activity bonds. All the hospitals that are built, housing that is built depend on private activity bonds. That'll do, repealing private activity bonds, dollar for dollar, will do more to hurt the economy than reducing the corporate rate will do to help the economy. Yes.
Senator, would Democrats support tinkering or changing some of the Obamacare taxes? The House Republicans yesterday came out and suggested, like, delaying the Cadillac tax for a year, suspending for 5 years the tax on medical devices. Some of these things, some Democrats...
Yeah, but they're not even negotiating with us, okay? So I don't see how you can ask the question. The overall bill is so awful that doing these little things, whether Democrats are for them or against them, won't make the bill better.
Which bill are you talking about?
This bill, the bill that passed the House, the bill that passed the Senate, and wherever they seem to be headed in the compromise bill.
They're not necessarily going to put this in the tax bill, they say. I mean, there's some speculation they might put it on the CR.
Well, again, then that's a negotiation. If the Republicans in the House try to jam something through and slash programs for the middle class, you saw 44 Democrats said we wouldn't vote for it, so they ought to give that up right now. Paul Ryan's going to have the courage to tell the hard right they cannot run the government.
Senator, turning back to the election, you framed it as a referendum on Republican policies, but don't you think it was also really a referendum on Roy Moore's conduct and the allegations against him?
Look, no one is saying there's seeds of each in the election. But it was not simply Roy Moore's conduct, where a majority of Republican voters sided with Roy Moore on that issue. There's a great discontent about the way Donald Trump has conducted his presidency, and there's a great deal of discontent about the policies the Republicans are pursuing. And that was not just shown in Alabama. The same thing was shown in Virginia. Virginia and Alabama were similar. I mean, one is deeper red. But in each case, the Democratic electorate, the base, the millennials, the suburbs, came out in much higher numbers than in an off-year election. And the Republican base, even in northeast and southern Alabama, decidedly Republican, came out in slightly lower numbers than in the mixed elections. So it's true across the country. It's not just Alabama. So I think Moore had something to do with it. And obviously, a party that clings to a candidate like that has something really wrong with them. But it wasn't the whole story, and many of the seeds you saw in Virginia and New Jersey repeated themselves in Alabama. Okay? Last question. Go ahead, Bolton.
When would you like to see Doug Jones seated? And do you think there's any chance he could be seated this year?
Well, that would be very nice, but the law of Alabama says it has to wait at least till the end of December.
What if we come back after Christmas, like in the fiscal?
I'd like to see him seated as soon as possible, but the law of Alabama, this is not we've checked this out. It's not discretionary with the governor. At least he can't be certified, I think, for about 10, 12 days after the election. Okay? Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
In a similar vein, have you heard from Senator Franken about when exactly he's leaving? And have you talked to Tina Smith, who is expected to...
I'm not going to comment on Minnesota because there'll be some things you'll hear about shortly.
Can you comment on the reports about a phony allegation that was made
Yeah.
against your office?
Yeah, it was a phony allegation, forged, false from start to finish, and we are pursuing every legal path to those who might have broken the law be prosecuted for it.
Do you
Thank you.
For